First, I would like to start by thanking the EUREKA Chair for inviting me or Copenhagen to attend this conference. I also attended the banquet yesterday at City Hall, and it has convinced me that this is actually a very important place and a very relevant place for a city to be. It's the issues that we are facing as cities today have grown so complex that it is hard to be to maintain the normal buyer-seller approach. Today we need a much more collaboration around what the solutions are, and we need much more dialogue. And it is important that both the industry as a whole makes clusters, as you do here, in order to solve our issues and make big solutions. But it's also important that we take one step forward as cities or public administrations and try to develop the solutions together with you. But I feel that to some extent the days where a seller can come and just present this is it are sort of over. At least I think that we need the industry to come to get much more closer to what our problems in the cities are, because they are complex and they demand a lot of various efforts to be solved. Yes, I'm going to talk a little about Copenhagen Smart City and what we do. And starting with this picture, what you will notice is that it's a city hall in the background. But then you will notice two women. That is something that is very important for me to stress, that smart city is about people. We have just made a new strategy for where the city would like to be in some years. And actually, smart city as a concept isn't really a part of that. The important thing and the way we look at smart city is as a means to an end. To be smart is just a matter of making livability, creating the good life for the citizens. It's not a task in itself. For the more nerdy of us, it might be, but when it comes to the presentation to the public, to the taxpayers, and to the politicians, the important thing is to talk about livability, quality of life. So our strategy goes in three strands. We want to be a responsible city, and that is, for instance, about being CO2 neutral in 2025. Very important for us, and also something that actually guides a lot of our efforts also on smart city, that we want to get the CO2 emissions down almost at every cost. But it also includes better use of waste or less waste and climate activities, of course. We also want to be a livable city. There you see it again, with cyclists and everyday life and things like that. And finally, we want to be a city with an edge, where there's some tension between the ways the part of the city interacts. But you see, that's our strategy, and there's no real mentioning of smart city. There's just an underlying strand in all of this work. Getting a bit more close to what then is smart city for Copenhagen, you could say that we have created this house. Where the roof, the point of it all is quality of life, growth, and green city. That relates to the previous slides. And then we have some basic pillars. One is about the data platform and something about privacy. That is fundamental in order to work with smart city. Of course, smart city is about data. Then there's something about smart city infrastructure, also very relevant, not very easy to sell to politicians, for instance, but of course it's a crucial element of a smart city. And then something about integrating the public and the private sector into this effort, that is co-creation and partnerships. And that goes to the definition of smart city. We have a middle layer with various strands that you can address. And You can argue that they are a part of smart city. You could also say that smart health is an industry in itself. Smart learning is an industry in itself. But the way we have chosen to do it is to say that we have a smart city operations thing that is one element, and then some other from the different administrations, some elements that we put into, and this we call the smart city strategy. About the infrastructure, we won the Smart City Award in Barcelona a few years ago, based on the concept of Copenhagen connecting. And the basic premise for that idea is it's not very complicated. It's just that we need to connect everything, and that we need to do it in a way where we reuse the infrastructure, so that we avoid, for instance, vendor login, but also so that for instance, platforms, servers, cables can be used for more solutions than just one. And I think that actually this is where you can identify some cluster ideas, because in order to achieve that, we need to work together with the industry on finding a concept where they leave each supplier leaves their individual technology and tries to think of a common concept. It may not be hard. It may just be a question of opening up data, having data in an accessible format, but nonetheless, it's also a question of making solutions integrating various, for instance, sensor types. The smart city infrastructure is both about technology. It's also about the data, and you could take a number of approaches to what smart city will be. Use cases could be something like air quality, water quality, noise, bins telling when they need to be emptied, roads that tell when they need to be salted. Now I'm getting below +2 degrees, and you might consider salting me, because otherwise I'll be slippery. And then you can create routes for the salting cars based on these things. So another thing about these use cases is to transfer or translate all these sensors into something meaningful. And that, I think, is a very important aspect of smart city. It's not just about creating data. You could say that already today we have plenty of data. The important thing is to define what are these data actually going to solve, and how do we need to work with them. Now I'm going to talk a bit about how we have structured our effort in Copenhagen. We have decided that we do not make a central smart city office that sort of integrates all business units' smart city efforts into itself. Instead, we have said that the most knowable about the issues that should be addressed are in the business lines. So we actually keep, to some extent, the silos that are often addressed as being the wrong way to do it. We keep some of the silos and make them do the work. So our traffic projects are based in the traffic department, and so on. But instead, we have created a small unit, you could say on top of it or beside it, that is trying to coordinate all these efforts. Because to address the issues that are described before around infrastructure, we need somebody who takes care of and actually tries to govern that the work we do does not divide itself too much. The energy for the traffic solutions lies in the traffic department, but we need to be sure that they consider a shared solution, so they're not buying something completely different or buying something that sort of closes in data or results in things that we might consider unwise. So we created this small unit which has this as one task. Another task is to be well, an entry point for vendors, private companies that wants to work with Copenhagen, wants to work with data, wants to do something with the smart city. And the point of this unit, Copenhagen Solutions Lab, is also to be part of to create a quadruple helix, I think it's called now. That is integrating both business, private sector, the research institutions, and the citizens, because we need, if we want to do this in a smart way, we need all these parties involved in working with us on how we should proceed. A few examples of what we're doing presently. One thing is that we are creating a small test area around the city hall, which you can see. You can see it up there in the top of the picture. That's the city hall, where we will put up various equipment and test and demonstrate some of these solutions. For instance, water, air, noise, as I described before. You could say that some of these, and parking, of course, you could say some of these solutions are actually, well, they're out of the box now, so you really don't need to test them. You could just buy them. But we think that the important thing is not to get one solution for each thing. The important thing is to make these things work together. And therefore, the idea of making a testbed is also to demonstrate that we can actually integrate all these information that we get from the various sensors into something that is meaningful. And if we can show that, we think that we might get a head start in the budget negotiations, because it's very complicated to explain how all this is actually translated into quality of life when you have politicians that can instead select a new kindergarten, that they can go to their voters and say, I did that. But it's very hard to go to your voters and say, well, I've implemented an infrastructure that you cannot see. So we think this is a good idea, and we will be opening it at a grand conference, the 7th, 8th of June in Copenhagen. Another thing we do is, like many others, we have created an open data platform, and I think that we are just on the verge of making this into something big. One thing is that we have a collaboration with the four other major cities in Denmark, and created a shared platform. The Copenhagen data platform is just a part of that, but we also create an open data Denmark platform, and it seems that there might be that we might get support now to advance this to the whole country with governmental support. It's not. It's at least they're debating that right now, and I'm very hopeful that this will happen, because in term both relating to test beds, but also to open data, what is important is scale. So we need to think the important thing about open data is not Copenhagen opening for our data, or Aarhus or Vejle opening for their. The important thing is to integrate the data, to make them standardized and to make them accessible. And I hope that this crowd approach will maybe make it easier to standardize than the ways we have been used to. Because the more you standardize things and the more scale you get, the easier it will be for vendors to join and make a solution that can actually sell to a whole country or a whole continent. And that also goes for the test beds, that we also need to focus on how do we scale this. A number of reports actually addresses this issue, that there's too much piloting. that is that we are actually working on too small a scale, and there's too little consideration. How do we grow? How do we grow from the test that proved successful to actually covering the whole city? Another thing that is actually, I think, quite unique at presently is that we created with Hitachi an effort called the City Data Exchange. We asked Hitachi, well, we made a tender asking the bidders to come up with a business case for sharing data. And then we said that we will provide some basic funding for this initiative, but actually you're on your own. And Hitachi won with this City Data Exchange platform, and the idea, as opposed to open data, which we give to Hitachi as we give it to anybody, the idea of this exchange platform is that private companies can come with their data and barter them or sell them to each other. And we think that this will give the companies involved in that a head start, because they can easily get much wiser than their competitors. And this Hitachi won, and it has invested a lot in creating the platform, and the platform will go live, I think, end of May. So we have a number of initiatives coming up right now. So the idea is simply to sell. You can make your own price structure. How do you want to charge users for the data? Hitachi gets a cut. And then there's also intended to be some measures to make it possible for third parties to use these data with various business models, and making it possible for them to address me as a private person and ask if I will allow them to access my data and use them for something that is relevant for me. Intelligent traffic management is also a very important topic in Copenhagen. We also have the ITS conference in 2018 that we are looking forward to. The ITS program is going live. I think it's end of this year, citywide. That is that we have control of all traffic lights, can control them remotely. We build in some low power networks going through the whole city, so that we will be able to support the traffic and enhance mobility a lot, we expect. Finally, we also implemented intelligent street lighting. That goes in two things. The one thing is, of course, the LED lighting in order to save energy. But another thing is also to be able to control these city lights. And that, for instance, we have done in some crossings, that we dim the light when there's nobody there. And when there's, for instance, is a bicycle, we do not shut it down. But for instance, when there's a bicycle in the bicycle lane, the light goes up or gets stronger in order to show that the cars should be careful. There's somebody they should look out for. And that is also citywide, and we finish by end this year. So a lot of interesting initiatives, and I think we are only at the beginning of what this can become. But I think that it is my learning that of course we can ask for some things when we discover a problem. But I think it's also very important that we find new ways to work with the industry, and that the industry also gets much more into coming up with solutions. Not just coming with, well, you can buy everything that we have, because we know that we can buy everything. The important thing is that you help us finding a solution to a problem that we have found or that you have found, and hopefully also, at best, a good business case. I provided a few links here for that you can look into our open data platform and our solution lab and to our maps and things like that.
Thank you very much, Winn. Thank you. I think it was a fascinating presentation. I want to start off with a question. Roughly how many people work at the city of Copenhagen?
About 50,000.
And how many work in your lab?
Well, 10 at highest.
Okay, so I think the question I think what you're doing is fascinating. And my question, from having worked in different levels of government, is, so you're an innovation unit that's trying to drive change.
Yes.
How do you get the rest of the city to listen to you?
Now that is a lot of the issue. with this, but it's also a part of the advantage, because it is what we didn't want was some sort of innovative unit just galloping off into the sunset, and that we never heard of, or that come back with solutions that we don't want.
Right.
And actually, we had a case like that where we started debating a solution. And came back to the people actually working that was in around garbage, and they came back with, we came back to them with this. Would that be interesting? And they said, definitely not. This is very unhealthy. We cannot work this way. Our backs won't last. So the crucial thing is actually to keep that relation, and that is hard footwork, to go out and contact the relevant people and make them interested. Because if we don't have a customer that is interested, then we're dead.
Yes, yeah. And the customers are partially also the other departments. Then
exactly. Absolutely, that is our customer.
Yeah. Okay. Very interesting. And you talked a lot about learning, which I think is something that all cities are trying to do right now. You're learning how to interact with the private sector. How to deal with procurement or these kind of things. How do you have a way of systematizing the learning that you're doing, or how do you share that learning, perhaps within the city, but perhaps also with other?
Of course, we build more and more knowledge around how to do this, and we have some hard-earned experiences. Yeah. But it's difficult to share, because each project at the moment is in a new topic and a new direction. But I think that what we also had a recent report stating is that we need to work a lot more on the city level, communicating with each other. Around how we solve, for instance, tenders, public-private innovation partnerships, pre-commercial procurement, things like that. We need much more knowledge sharing in order to do that.
Between the cities? Between the cities,
yes. Yes.
Okay, okay. Are there any questions to Winn? I have, yeah, please. There, Maya. No, please wait for because we also have people watching on the internet.
Can you hear me now?
Not really.
How do I switch it on?
Or try the other one, maybe? Now it's on. Yeah.
Oh, thanks for that. So Roger Lee from Vancouver. I was really interested in the data brokerage part, the Hitachi piece. We've done something similar in Vancouver. Trying to allow people to, in a sense, buy and sell data. Yeah. Our focus has been on citizen data, and we've really struggled. Citizens don't trust the city, they don't trust the companies, and I'm not sure who they do trust, to tell you the truth. And they're looking for a kind of a third-party entity that they're willing to share data with, and so we've had to set our data brokerage up as a third-party, independent of all of those, almost as a not-for-profit. Is that the same as the approach you've got, or have you had good experiences with is Hitachi leading the actual?
Well, privacy is a growing concern in Copenhagen. Basically, we are quite trustful as Danes regarding the public sector. The public sector has a lot of information about us, and we generally trust the public sector to be able to handle that. When it comes to a private company, it's very important to stress that they have to respect our data protection laws. So they are not having data on a personal level. But what we do is then that we make it possible for third parties via me giving them access. So the idea is basically that if a third party vendor wants to do something, for instance, with my energy consumption, and the energy company is ready to deliver the data to Hitachi, then the Hitachi platform will make it possible to ask me whether I will allow that. And if I allow that, then it's compliant with the data protection laws. So that is the way we have chosen to address this. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a question. And then we can take one more, maybe before, if anybody...
Thank you. Leyla Arsan from Istanbul. My question is, can you give some examples about the smart learning that you mentioned in your presentation?
The smart learning is in another department than mine, so I'm not much into that. But the idea is just to, as I understand it, is just to integrate computers and remote learning much more into our educational system. But I can't give you any specific examples on that.
Okay, thank you. There's one here, and I think we can take... yeah, go ahead.
So good morning, everybody. My name is Gökhan Yildirim. I'm from Austria, which is the most smart city and sustainable city, most livable city, la la la, Lili. You know, this American journalist has invented this smart city definition. As an institute, World Sustainable Energy Institute, we like smart city, but the gathering data doesn't tell your city is smart or not. So, I mean, we are now furthered as Smart City Vienna, but the difficulties, Smart City Copenhagen, and comparison to other cities, what were the difficulties? So the gathering data, it's also complicated to gather, but what have you shared? Could you share us your opinions about it?
On how we compare smart cities?
I mean the data. So you collect the data.
Yeah.
For example, I am 110 kilos. I know this data, but I have to be 90. I mean, what shall I do? What could you suggest? So the city could also have data, but to analyze it in 1 day or 2 days, in 10 days, I have to reduce 20 kilos. How is it possible in this smart city as well?
Yeah.
So data, I don't trust data in a way. So
Okay.
This is my question.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think that the question raises two things. One is how to translate the data into something meaningful, and I think that in that respect it is crucial to have the dialogue with the various business strands in the city in order to find out what are they actually looking for. We can collect all types of data, but what's the problem? And address how do we solve this problem or find out more about it with data. And also relating to privacy, that is part of the privacy debate is also that we shouldn't collect more than we actually need in order to address our issues, because otherwise you can very easily collect much too much. Another thing is between cities, there's a very long way to go regarding standardization and being able to exchange data and compare them between cities. We are engaged in an EU project with Helsinki and Antwerpen that goes around that, but also we have joined the Open Agile Smart Cities community, which is last time it was 75 cities across the world that intends to work on collaborating on creating shared standards. It's only in the beginning right now, so the work hasn't begun yet. But that's also another approach to try to address this more worldwide, to be able to talk together around the data and our shared issues.
And to also strengthen the learning you talked about before.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, last question up there, please.
Hello, just a quick question. With the open data policy, open data, how do you balance that against terrorist threat and threat to the city? Do you give consideration to the fact that open data has to be filtered in some way towards people that want to do the city harm?
Well, we have been thinking about that. We feel, of course, we don't give out any personal data, and we are quite strict about what personal data is. Also, things that you could learn something personal from if you work with the data, we exclude from our open data. But there are some elements that are governed by security policy that we do not publish. Various buildings, various pipes, utilities, things like that we sort of keep a bit under wraps. But that's about it. Generally, we try to be as open as possible, because you will be able to find these data if you want to.
Thank you.
Winn, I think it's been a great presentation. I have one very short question. What's the biggest challenge in your job?
Well, the biggest challenge I think is to come up with problems and solutions that match. I think we have parts of issues and we have parts of solutions, but making something that addresses the city perspective as a whole and make it also possible to actually buy into. That is the challenge.
Yes.
To grow this layer of solutions. Yeah.
Okay. I want to thank you very much. I think it's been a very interesting presentation. Thank you.